total death traps, absolute death traps. With the extra weight of carrying trays and food, there's no way that they could get up and down those stairs in one piece.
All right, got exactly 10 minutes till we board and strike her. I'd watch my step if I were you.
Ted, this whole thing's all in your mind.
Stairs have always been dangerous. Even with today's building regulations, at least 300,000 accidents occur every year in the UK. But in Victorian times, it was even worse.
There's numerous accounts of people falling down staircases and breaking their necks, or breaking a leg and dying later of septicemia.
Why were there so many deaths and injuries from stairs?
The difference in staircases, from the decorated staircase, which was the main one in the house, which was there as a show of wealth. It was a statement to say, look, this is how much money I've got. As you came through the front door, and there's this wonderful double bullnose stairs, highly decorated with spindles and volutes and balustrades and goosenecks. You had people spending thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on these staircases. And then the downstairs staircase was for the servants. It was built out of the cheapest softwood that you could possibly buy. Safety really wasn't high on the agenda.
Tragic, really, because by 1847, visionary builder Peter Nicholson had calculated how to build a safer staircase, transforming the art of stair building into a science.
He came up with a mathematical formula for working out the rise and go of a staircase.
It was a science that was often overlooked in the late Victorian period.
With the extra weight of carrying trays and food, there's no way that they could get up and down those stairs in one piece. Total death traps, absolute death traps.
Stairs remain one of the most common sources of accident and death in the home.
Okay, so we get it. Stairs are absolute death traps. In fact, for every single step, every single rise of inches when designing and constructing a home, an office, a government building, post office, anything, factory, anything, you would want to, let's do a quiz. A, minimize the number of steps in order to conserve space, building material, labor costs, heating, cooling, or at least heating costs, efficiency, actually being able to heat the place. And then, you have your danger from falling down the stairs, from dropping things and having them break because you're spending more time on the stairs. Just look at, if you watch the show Cake Boss, it's probably scripted sometimes, the drama aspect, but they work on this cake all the dang time, all the show long. They're working, fighting and arguing about the cake and getting it just right, and who has the skills and how much fondant do you use and all this stuff. And then comes time to make the delivery and they have to go down these stairs because it's, piss poor planning with the old shop. I think their newer shop, they don't have to do the stairs. Why? Because over the years, over the decades that family has been in business, how many cakes have they dropped? And those are stairs that are to code. And I can guess, I don't need to imagine, but I can guess that the Mudflooders, the old architecture buildings, had stairs set up for giants and they needed to be replaced anyway. And so stair builders, stair makers, you know, you get these weird stairs, and there are so many examples, and they're clearly, you know, replaced and not original in a lot of cases. Well, the stair steps, just by sheer quantity and the distance you need to rise, seems to me like you'd want to minimize all that stuff. So for the quiz, would you want to have it be as high as you can and everything, so that you get fewer, also you get, for the same material, same labor and everything, you get fewer floor space. Isn't that why you build another floor on a structure? To get more square footage in the same footprint? Essentially, logically, isn't that why you do it most of the time? I think that's a major factor. So why would you have the floor heights be so high, 16, 23, 26 foot ceilings in some cases? You know, and then you add to that all these stairs, all these freaking stairs that they had to do. In frontier times, they built buildings where you and I've been saying it, like they were the stair masters, man. They loved to go up and down them steps. They loved them shits. All the stairs, they loved it. They were the original stair masters. That's why that's how they stayed fit. I guess that was the plan, you know, one of the reasons, apparently, because logically in the quiz, choice B would be, you know, you minimize the number of steps, you minimize the number of feet between the floors. I think the standard now is 10 in taller buildings of 3, 4 more stories. You don't need any more than that, really, unless you have some special case or something, you know, certain factories or whatever. But for humans walking around of our size, you see, that's the key. That's the only factor. That's one of the reasons that I keep saying there were giants in the more recent past that were part of the civilization that constructed most of the great, grand, old architecture of the previous civilization, that the history that's been lost and scrubbed and mostly either hidden or forgotten. Of course, on purpose, not by accident. But now, I don't even know that there's a conspiracy or a concerted effort that even needs to happen with all of it, because once it's lost and gone, it's lost and gone, except for us and others here who have inquiring minds that want to know what the heck's going on around here. You know, why would they have built these things? Was it because their cowboy hats and top hats were so big? I mean, come on. So, stairs, yeah. Then there's the subject of chimneys and fireplaces, because I've been noticing this for a long time. The traditional fireplace, as we understand it, is bullcrap.
In the rush to introduce this new technology, you get a builder in or you do the work yourself, not necessarily to the highest specification. There's no building regulations, so a lot of these early chimneys are built out of really inappropriate materials, timber and wattle, so that's earth.
You could stock your fire and light it. The wood would burn, the sparks would go up the back of the chimney, and then all of a sudden the wicker on the back of the chimney would catch a light. And that could smoulder for hours and hours. You and your family would be fast asleep, and that chimney was burning away unknowingly. And then, of course, that would spread to the roof, and then you wouldn't be getting out of the building then.
As well as using flammable materials in its construction, Tudor builders had yet to work out the basic principles that make a chimney function.
It took quite a while before they realised that you had to have an aperture in the front of the fireplace that was no more than 10 times the narrowest point in the chimney. If you don't do that, then it won't draw properly, you'll get smoke spilling back into the room.
The draw is the suction effect that quite literally draws smoke and gases away from the fire, up the chimney and out of the house. But if the draw's not strong enough, smoke lingers in the chimney for far too long, with deadly consequences.
the smoke used to sit about halfway up the chimney and it would just tumble. Now, anybody that knows anything about fires knows that smoke is unburnt fuel.
Forensic fire expert Emma Wilson can demonstrate the impact of unburnt fuel in a Tudor chimney.
The smoke that is being produced by the fire at the base of the chimney ignites, and all of the smoke that's exiting the chimney begins to flame very quickly.
The smoke itself catches fire?
The smoke catches fire, yes, and I've got an experiment to show you how combustible smoke can be.
OK, here we go. Whoa! So without an effective draw, thick soot deposits build up inside the chimney. Smoke hangs around in the flue until the heat builds up to ignition point. It's easy to see this effect in Emma's experimental chimney.
It's crap. Let me just sum it all up in a simple sentence here. That dog don't hunt. No wheres, no hows. Chimneys, fireplaces, all that stuff. Okay, I have one in my home and I wanted it. A wood-burning fireplace. Not to heat my home. Not to cook with or anything, although I do believe they used it for that. But as far as anything other than the ambiance that I get from it, it serves as a fresh air source, a cold air return, as it were. It keeps, like airflow without a cross breeze. You can have airflow.
So you can see the gases coming at the top, start to get the ticking. There you are, you've got flames at the top already.
Gosh. Imagine the effect of these flames on a thatched roof. So I suppose at first people didn't realise that this happened with chimneys.
Now, if you'd never had a chimney before, how would you know that this could happen? How would you know that you had to clean the inside of your chimney? So when people first started using chimneys, I imagine you built it and you thought that was it. Whereas actually, we now know that cleaning your chimney regularly is something you've just got to do to prevent chimney fires from occurring.
In Tudor times, as today, the consequences of fire could be devastating. Pamphlets like this one from 1586 poetically chart the emotional impact of these frequent fires.
Our mourning in woe. They describe really horrendous, heart-rending experiences of the individuals losing, obviously, their lives, their children, and their property. And there's quite a bit of attention paid in these accounts to the kinds of goods being lost and burned, and a sense of just tremendous ruin and loss.
A rude fellow, by firing up his chimney, procured their casualty.
There are accounts of a third of towns being taken out by these major fires that are sometimes traced back to just one individual not looking after their chimney properly.
Other than that, I mean, I believe that they would cook things in the fireplaces, but it makes sense to have it enclosed, not open, like they show. And then chimneys, the way they build up soot and everything, you listen to the history on the chimneys here and anywhere, and you find out that they didn't know that, like, creosote and all this stuff, the chimneys just accumulate this flammable stuff, and then the time comes and they burn. And they also don't even work. The smoke does not go up and out of the chimney. It doesn't. It goes where it wants to go. I mean, there is a method to it. And being someone who's interested in physics and everything like that, I know how I do it. I try to create a thermal flow, I call it, and I get that going. And I use a candle and make sure the smoke from the candle is going up and everything. And then I use the wax from the candle to actually help start the fire and, get the kindling going and everything, and then get the fire going.
But the biggest cause of death was not fire itself. Dr. Stephen Gunn is conducting important new research.
Coroner's reports find that there are more house collapses killing people than house fires, because Tudor houses are mostly made out of things that burn quite easily. They're mostly timber framed, but they burn quite slowly, so people have the chance to get out. The problem is they're building chimneys onto houses, and of course chimneys are large structures, so we have chimneys collapsing during fires or when fires are lit inside them.
Brick was the wonder material that distinguished the architecture of the Tudor age. But it turns out that early bricks had a hidden weakness when it comes to the defining feature of a 16th century house.
Coal and wood, they would burn inside a chimney, wood at about 1,000 degrees C, and coal at about 1,200 degrees C. Well, that was way more than the brick could handle. So the bricks just couldn't handle the heat whatsoever, and they would explode. The mortar that was holding the bricks together would expand, then it would contract, fall out, the bricks would be split, and the chimney would come crashing down.
So, for example, we got an accident in Kent in 1518 with a fire that breaks out at a house in Wingham in Kent. Several men run to put the fire out. Thomas Adams, one of them, is called Arthur Overn, another one. They get to help put the fire out with other people, but again, in the course of the fire, the brick chimney collapses on top of them. So it's actually the collapsing material rather than the fire itself that kills them in the end.
The Tudors gradually came to understand the risks to life and property that chimneys could pose. To tackle the problem, they drew up what were effectively the very first health and safety laws for chimneys.
There are ordinances, for example, issued in Oxford in 1582 that actually make it the responsibility of each individual householder to construct their chimneys and their roofs in appropriate materials. So not thatch for the roof, but tile or slate, and brick or stone for the chimney.
That all chimneys occupied with fire within the said city shall from henceforth be swept 4 times every year, whereupon pain of forfeiture for every time that any chimney shall happen to be fired, 3 shillings 4 to be paid by the owners of the same chimneys so fired.
But even these laws couldn't prevent the Great Fire of London, 84 years later.
About the fireplaces, fireplace history is bullcrap. Fireplaces don't work, and if you want to know how they heated their homes, you may have wondered about fireplaces, because a fireplace can be made to heat a home, but it has to be a stove, and it has to be the right kind of stove, and it has to burn like probably coal. And they don't show that throughout history. That's more of a, of course, post-1850. If you look at the technology of fireplaces, it's all like starting, of course, right around 1850, all the advancements. Like, they started to figure out stairs after 1850. They started to figure out chimneys after 1850. They started to figure out fireplace inserts and stoves after 1850. They started to nail down different things like, steam heating, which is by far superior. The localized boiler is always the problem of steam heating. But you see, if you watch my video about the Mudflood heating systems, what they used was ingenious, it was free, and it was so powerful it didn't have to be efficient. It was by nature efficient, but they didn't. It's ingenious because they didn't have to do the efficiency thing where you tighten up the gaps and everything of your home or building, because that causes bad air when you tighten it all up, like everybody thinks is the thing to do now. It's horrible. Just if you have carpet in your home or whatever, having it all tight like that is no good for you. And that's one of the reasons I like my fireplaces. It always allows some air in or out. You get some ventilation there. And animals don't tend to come in and all that because of the way it is. Because of the way it's long column, tall column and everything, and so they'd have to make their way up on the roof, and bugs don't like to crawl around on the roof and such and so forth. So it makes sense, but you have to think about it differently of what it is, and take what they tell you what it is and think, what if that is what it is not? That's how you start to get to some answers. So my video on Mudflood heating is I'm the most pleased with, proud of, whatever. That video, it's one of my landmark videos because it shows you exactly how they heated, and it was through geothermal steam, and the heat output, when it's tuned properly by somebody who knows what they're doing, and you can learn the basics of it by watching the video, it puts out so much steam heat. They said, like the Empire State Building in the dead of winter, coldest day of a New York City winter on a cold year, you can have all the windows open and running what I think it was like 2 or 2.5, maybe 3 psi steam into the existing heating system that seems to always have been there. In the Empire State Building, you can have all the windows open and wear a t-shirt and shorts and be comfortable, and you get all that ventilation, and it just puts out so much heat. And it's geothermal, man. They won't tell you that. Edison, in New York they use Edison and power, or whatever they call it, but the Edison lines come out of some mystery place. Well, it's underground. It's just geothermal, man. And I think the geothermal is the answer as to or one of the answers as to why star forts are where they are, which wouldn't make sense except that the star forts are at the heart of a city, heart of a, development or settlement. And wouldn't you want not only to have access to water and then level enough ground to have roads, but you would also want access to geothermal venting or something so you can tap into it, get your steam heat out, and you just keep linking up. It's one spring or steam vent, whatever they call it, that'll power and feed a huge area. Like in one video I watched, I think Chicago only needed 4 or 5 of those taps. Well, they don't say that's what it is. They say they have this energy center where they somehow they claim, that they produce energy there without burning coal or all these different things. I guess they say they're just using electricity, but just to make the steam. But it's so inefficient to use electricity to make steam. It goes the other way around. It would take a lot of electricity to make steam. It wouldn't make sense to have a separate. Why would you need a separate place for that? I mean, for the steam, yeah, but to use electricity, the whole thing doesn't really make sense because they're not telling you the whole story. The part, is missing of what I said about it and what's in my video. So you really should watch that steam Mudflood video. Anyway, fireplaces are bullcrap. If you look at them, they're either not used, or if they have been used in the anywhere recent past, there's all this smoke coming out the front, even by the old guys and people who are supposed to know all that, and they do. It's just very hard to control the drafts and everything. The wind conditions matter. If somebody opens a door during a gust and it can just make the smoke go the wrong way, and it does. And when it does, the mantle gets all smoked up, and so it's a joke, like they have the gas inserts and everything, and most homes nowadays have that. Think of it just in your own personal life. How many times have you ever been in a house where they had an open air fireplace going and they were using it for heat, and it wasn't a situation where that's all they had? If they had a furnace and everything else, why would they use that fireplace? So the radiant steam heating, that's the way to go. And the Europeans know it. They use that stuff. It's not new technology. It's very old technology. Very, very old. So what was the point with the fireplaces? Well, the fireplaces were where they would just do heating food and stuff. So mainly I think they were just used for cooking, and they would dangle the pots and different things up higher. But those were more like ovens. They were raised up. Like if you go, I don't know if your area has it, but like a pizza place where they have a wood fire oven where it's really deep in, and they have to use this long, big spatula thing to get the stuff in and out and whatever, because they don't want the smoke coming out of the open end, and they oftentimes close that anyway, and the fire is underneath and in a separate door sometimes. But that's not like the fireplaces you see in these homes. And in these old homes, they have one of these fireplaces in every room. Can you imagine how much work it was to have people go around and stoke all those fires. They don't even, I mean, you have to throw logs on the fire to keep it going. Like every few hours you got to throw a log on there. Do you think they did that like all day and all night and all those different fireplaces, or most of the different fireplaces? It would be nuts. It would be insane. I think they were cold air returns, is mostly, or ventilation and such, you know. Could be used for fire, but just like today, I mean, I could use mine for fire right now, but I don't. I mean, it's warm out, but if it were cold out, I probably wouldn't be used. I haven't used it in like a whole year. So so then what really gelled it in for me, I was doing a video, which I'll show you. It's an abandoned house, like an old Mudflood, or somebody lived in it in the, I don't know how recent past, it looked like the 80s or something. It was a color photo, and that's when the couple was old, and they were the last couple to live in the home. But how long the home had been there wasn't clear. It had been there for a long time. And it had fireplaces in every room, but it had a fireplace at the bottom of the spiral staircase in the tower center of the big mansion. And the fireplace was even like under, it wasn't just in the hallway that had this, the winding kind of spiral, but kind of winding up staircase. It wasn't just in that space. It was actually further over under the stairs. Like the heat from the fireplace would go right up and hit the steps there. And the chimney for that fireplace is probably 50 feet tall. Like, are they going to chimney sweep that thing every year? It's insane. Oh, by the way, as an aside, somebody pointed out in the comments somewhere, I can't give credit because I don't remember who, sorry, but you know who you are if you're listening. Amazon Kindle is the books thing. And why would they choose the word Kindle? Because it makes you think of book burning. You know, Kindle, fire. Well, they call, gosh, I just realized that. The Amazon tablets were called Fire tablets. They are called Fire tablets. And so it was Kindle Fire. Kindle Fire, but it's all centered around, it originated around books. So when I hear Kindle and fire in books, I think of book burning. Well, what would be the modern day book burning? Well, it would be a digital either alteration or deletion of the materials. That's why I'm hoping and planning, and I will publish my book. 2 of them, I think. I may combine them into one, but I think I have to do 2. The first one will be shorter than the second one, but I might just publish the first one to get it out there because it's closer to being done. But it's going to be hard copy, not necessarily hard cover, probably hard cover, some of them soft cover, whatever, but it's going to be physically printed on paper and everything that will last. Because digitally, you know, things can be made to go away or even changed, you know. Like that's why that's why I'm very careful about this whole Mandela effect thing, because they can start it up and have it, oh, it's just nonsense, and then have it in the public mind as nonsense, and then get in and digitally alter. Well, heck, they've already started doing it. They did it with a SpaceX launch once, and Jeranism pointed that out. It was live coverage, and then it got changed. But they've also done it with, news footage where, like, 9/11, some of the things that aired were different from what people saw, and it was also different from what people saw after they were done changing it up. Because you have the building, and people who were there didn't see anything. And then they aired the footage, and I think my theory is they aired the wrong tape, and they had like an orb in there that went into the building. But I think that was just like a place marker that they put on in the early hours or days of the CGI manipulation, which was done ahead of time. And that's it's the quintessential example of the Niller skies. That's where I got it from, folks. You hear me talking about Niller skies, vanilla skies. Yeah, it's from 9/11. It's because in the footage from the vantage point, when they show the towers, where in one video you see it, there's no plane, there's nothing. And in another video you see it, and there's this gray orb that goes right into the building right when it explodes. Straight line, everything. And then in another video they have the planes, which are known to be fakes because the wing dips behind a building that's in the background because they screwed up and they didn't know to make it go in front or whatever. Or it goes in front of a building that's in the foreground. I can't remember which of the two, but it's a logical, alpha or beta error, right? Either one falsifies the whole thing. Plain as day, it's there. Official video, and so they can change that. I don't know if they did, but they tend not to show things, but they did change some of the things. So anyway, it's just insane to think about how some of these things just are there right in front of your face and nobody questions this stuff much. But we are now, aren't we? And it yields results, doesn't it? All right, with that, I say this was a good mystery history. Mudflood, old world architecture, lost civilization, lost technology, ancient technology, antiquitech video. And if you liked it, please share, please subscribe, and all that good stuff. And be sure to subscribe to my other channel as well. And with that said, have a good one, folks. Bye-bye.